Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, January 12, 2021. My name is Karen Bodenschatz, and I serve as Associate Pastor at First Lutheran Church in Onalaska, Wisconsin, and this is my Tuesday morning musing. So it is Tuesday, which means that my focus this morning will be on the work that I am doing, that we are doing to becoming more anti-racist. And while talking about such things so publicly makes me uncomfortable and nervous some days, like today, well, being uncomfortable and nervous is kind of the point. It's the epitome of white privilege to say no to a difficult or risky conversation around race in our country, to choose safe and comfortable instead. And I'm trying to be less comfortable and to use my privilege to shed some light on injustice and racism, which is why I've set aside Tuesdays as the days that I will talk about in my musing what it means to be anti-racist more than racist. Accountability is a good thing, but often uncomfortable. So if you're still with me, let's take a moment and talk about the violence and disruption of the democratic process that happened on January 6th in our nation's capital. Friends, what happened Wednesday shook me. If you heard my sermon, you know that to be true. It absolutely shook me. And I'm still trying to put to words the feelings that I felt and continue to feel. And I don't know that I was terribly surprised, but I was shocked, if that makes any sense. I feel that way for a whole host of reasons, but one reason is that I cannot believe, given all the very open planning that was happening on social media, that there wasn't stronger protections in place to prevent the violence and desecration that occurred. These are volatile times. Even if we put aside the fear and anger that people of all ethnicities have been feeling for years, we are in the middle of a way longer than we ever imagined pandemic. People are tired and they're grieving and they're angry and they're bored. We are not likely to be our best selves right now. If that was the only thing going on in our nation right now, it would be enough to say at some point, we should probably have some extra folks around to keep order. People, they're on edge. But when you add on top of that, the election and the lies that are being so easily told and believed about some kind of rigged results, or you add on top of that the increased calls for justice and equality for people of color after continued killing of Black and brown people by police, and if you add on top of that the rise of white nationalism that seems emboldened by some of our leaders, and then you add on top of that deep economic inequalities, friends, it seems to me that someone would want to have more folks around to keep order and to protect lives. It's certainly what was happening this past summer as people, for the most part, peacefully protested the killing of people of color by police. National Guard units were sent to bolster our police forces so that we could do the work of democracy, but also keep people safe. Liberal use of tear gas in our capital against peaceful protesters this past summer was a scene played out all over the country. And yet on Epiphany Day, that January 6th, when a group of white people decided to go to the Capitol in larger numbers than usual to attend a rally, and plans were made by these people to march to the Capitol before that even happened, and threats were made to stop the process of the final step of certifying the election, and the rhetoric of their leaders was meant to rile the people up, the decision was made to not call in the National Guard, to not bolster the police force so that lives could be protected and peace maintained. Friends, regardless of what you believe about the election, regardless of what you believe about the people who decided it was okay and right to vandalize our Capitol building and to attempt to overturn a fair election, there is no denying that there is deeply rooted racism in the systems and people of our country. We cannot walk away from the events of Wednesday and not see that. I've not been able to get out of my head Dr. Kendi's chapters in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, about body, especially Black bodies, and our inherent distrust of Black bodies and Black behavior. Right there in front of me on my television was an example of the ways that we as a country have failed to become more anti-racist in our thinking and in our acting. The reason there was such a small protection force in DC last week, because the threats of violence were coming from white people, by and large, if not solely. And those white people knew it, and they exploited the ways that racism lives in our systems and in our hearts. I know there are other factors that went into the decisions of Capitol Police for that day, and we could be right to focus on those things, but we would be missing the root of the problem, that we as a country, as individuals, as the church, have a lot of work to do if we want to live up to the ideals that our ancestors set for this country. As a church, we have a lot of work to do if we want to be the people that Jesus calls us to be. That work begins with you and with me and with our facing the truth of our racist past and present and continuing to work to change it. It's hard work, friends, but it's worth it, and it's what we're called to do. So I hope you would join me. If you want to have further conversation about what I've said today or about the events of Wednesday, you are welcome to set up a time to talk with me. Either put a comment here or email me or call me. But be well, dear ones. Be kind, for Christ is with you.